Okay, let's see if we are live yet. All right, hello, and welcome. All right, so my name is Lisa Callahan, and I am the founder here at Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group, and I am also the founder of a wonderful program called Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System, where I help women to identify their invisible emotional relationship with food. Just want to make sure that we are on live. Yes, we are. Awesome. See if anybody hops on to join with us. Okay, so when I'm here with you, I want to give you these teachings. I give you these teachings every single week. And I have struggled with this emotional eating issue myself, and I struggled for decades. I didn't really know that I was struggling with emotional eating. I just kind of thought that I was going on a diet and that I really needed to use food to calm me down when I felt triggered. And because I did this for so many years and I really didn't know what I was doing, now when I'm stepping into this from a completely different angle, my food thing is fixed. I haven't had a binge in quite some many years now, at least 6. And so now that I'm able to step into this from a different lens, through a different, wider lens, now I want to be able to help share the secrets that I have learned about myself with you, because essentially we're all the same. So when I felt triggered about things and thought that I needed to use food to help calm me down, to help soothe me, to help comfort me, I understand why you're doing that as well. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So today we're going to give you 3 things to think so that you can think differently when you are triggered and you feel like you want to use food. So when we're coming into this, we have to be able to identify what the word trigger means. We use it really loosely. It's just like, I was triggered, so I had to eat. Someone bothered me. I had a really bad day at work. My kids pissed me off. You know, with all this COVID things going on, with the things that are going on in the world right now, and things just seem like so, angry out there, these people on the road. So we get triggered by a lot of things. But if we kind of can think about a trigger just being an unhealed part of ourselves, what we'll be able to understand is that when something triggers us, even if it's happening today, because it's triggering us, it sneaks us emotionally, spiritually down a timeline that takes us back to a place where we felt that trigger for the very first time. And many times that's when we were quite young. And so when you're thinking about it like that, we can completely understand where a trigger is just an unhealed part of ourselves. And if something that's triggering to you kind of makes you feel a certain way, maybe it makes you feel defensive. Maybe it makes you feel like crying. Maybe it makes you feel angry and like you want to throw something down, you want to break something. Maybe it makes you feel like you want to isolate, like you're just like, I'm not going to do it. You're just going to shut it down. And so when we think about the way that we behave when we're triggered, it makes sense that it would sneak us down a timeline, since a lot of the behaviors that we have are different than how we really want to show up in the world, right? Have you ever had something trigger you and then you respond or you react in a way that is not quite becoming, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like afterwards you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what the heck I said. Like, I don't know what I did. Like, that's not me. Like, that's not the real me. And we're constantly trying to kind of navigate through these like landmines in our space, in our current space. But the thing is that when those landmines are planted out there, they're sort of invisible. It's like we don't really see them coming. But then when we get triggered, it's like, boop, we trip over the landmine or into the landmine, really. Everything just explodes and we don't feel like ourselves anymore. It's not like we are responding from our, our whatever, like our cordial voices, we're not like, oh, it's all good, everything's fine. Typically, it'll cause a reaction that is, quite immature in some ways, right? Because we can end up feeling like angry or protective or crying or yelling or stamping our feet or feeling just so frustrated, like we don't know what to do. And so you can really see where the trigger is an unhealed part of yourself. And being able to understand it like that, well, now we can kind of look at the whole picture and see where when you're using the triggers out there to use food to comfort yourself or to soothe yourself or to calm yourself down. I have a lot of people that would tell me, it's like, well, I was nervous about something, so I went to food, or I felt anxiety about something, like, there's too many things. I feel overwhelmed. I feel upset. I feel like a victim. I feel victimized by the things that are going on, like things that at work maybe are unfair, or things at my home are unfair. So because I'm so unhappy with so many things and so many things are triggering to me, well, I have to use food to soothe and comfort myself. And so many times I have women that tell me that they are terrified to let go of their, quote unquote trigger, their soothing and calming foods. And the reason why they're so terrified to do that is because they can't imagine, well, it's like, well, how would I take care of my stuff that triggers me? Like, what the heck would I turn to? How would I calm myself down? How would I feel good again? How would I be able to soothe myself and comfort myself if I didn't have those comfort foods to, adapt to my trigger? And so here's the part where it gets a little confusing, because then we kind of got to say to ourselves, well, wait a minute, whose team are we on? Are we on the team of like keeping the trigger alive and like making certain that we protect it? Or are we more for getting rid of the like healing the trigger? And so I understand why this doesn't seem like an option, because back before I knew that it was an option, I didn't know it was an option. I didn't know that healing your triggers was a thing. I didn't know. And so I just kept thinking, okay, well, I feel this way, so I got to keep that going. I got to keep that going. I got to keep that going. Meaning I felt, from the inside out, I felt a lack of confidence. I felt a lack of self-esteem. I felt a lack of self-acceptance, honestly. Like, one of my big things was being perfect. And so sometimes that I pushed myself to do something that felt like it was outside of my comfort zone, just emotionally, like being able to, I don't know, talk or do things that, were communicative with other people. There was a feeling inside of me. And when I was alone, I would fuel that trigger. I would fuel that part of me that didn't feel confident and that didn't feel like I had a lot of worth and value in the world. And I would fuel it by adding all of this food into my system and then telling myself that I was just so anxious that I had to have the food to comfort me and to support, my my nervousness. But at the same time, really what I was doing was I was fueling that. I was actually feeding the unhealed part of myself. So I was fueling the wound. And this whole concept will open up your mindset to a new level of awareness, because you cannot know any more than you already know. And if you didn't know that you can heal 100% from your triggers, then you are just not aware that that's available to you yet. And I say yet firmly, because every single human being has the same ability to be able to respond to themselves in a loving and kind way. Now, when I was batting for the wrong team and I was trying to keep my trigger alive and trying to keep my wound nurtured, well, yeah, it wasn't working out well for me. And I'm certain it's not working out for you either. So as we start to think about this word trigger, with a different thought, like we say it so loosely, it's like, well, I got triggered, so I just had to go eat because I needed to be comforted. But if you said it in the other way, if you said, well, I got triggered and I had to go and eat all this food to actually protect, my wound, to make sure that my wound never heals, to keep my wound alive. Well, that sounds crazy. So why would you want to do that? That's what you're doing. And so when you can open up your mindset to a new level of awareness and expand your mindset to get outside of your comfort zone, well, then there's a lot of options that are available to you that are not available to you right now. And so stick with me on this and let's see if we can open your mindset to a new level of awareness. So one of the first things that I teach in my program called Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System is I teach you where you are standing in your own way. When you say things like, well, I was so triggered that I had to use food to comfort myself, I want you to ask yourself, and this is the first thing that you can tell yourself, because this is what we're talking about today. We're giving you 3 things that you can tell yourself when you tell yourself that you're triggered and you have to go to food. So thing number 1 is to be able to say to yourself, when you say, I'm using food for comfort, I want you to write that down and I want you to say, I am using food for comfort. And then look at it, read it back. I am using food for comfort. And then just look at it. You can either write it down or ask yourself this question. Is that thought meant to help me grow? Or is that thought meant to keep me stuck? And so think about it. I am using food for comfort. So you'll have to ask yourself, second question, this is another thing you can ask yourself, is this what I want? And is this how I want to feel 5 minutes from now, 5 days from now, 5 weeks from now, 5 years from now? And really think about that. That's a training from Brene Brown. If you think about it like that and you say to yourself, okay, I am triggered and I'm using this food for comfort. So the first thing to ask yourself is like, that meant to help me grow or keep me stuck? Now, the answer, I'll give you a little clue, is to keep you stuck, because if those foods were actually comfortable, then 5 minutes from now, you'd be like, this is awesome. 5 days from now, you'd be like, this is awesome. Let me do it again. 5 weeks from now, you'd be like, yeah, right on. I know what I'm doing. 5 months from now, 5 years from now, you'd be like, this is fantastic. But it's not. Maybe 5 minutes later, you're like, oh, like I got what I wanted. Like I feel good. But at the same time, go a little bit beyond that. Now, you're going to go back and you're going to be like, oh gosh, that's a bad idea. And so every time you keep coming up with this great idea to be triggered and use food to comfort yourself, that is meant to keep you stuck. And you can see it because it's not giving you the results that you say you want. You say you want comfort. Why don't you say, I want to heal the trigger? Like, why are you saying that the trigger is now in need of comfort? Because that's what you're saying. So the trigger gets to stay. The trigger gets like wrapped around in a beautiful blanket of comfort foods, right? And then at the end of that, it's like now you've got the trigger all like soothed and calmed down, right? But the trigger is the unhealed part of yourself. So really like separate it and say like, wait a minute, what am I doing? With this food, I am fueling, change the word from comforting to fueling. I am fueling this unhealed part of myself. Because when we say the word trigger, remember, write that down, trigger equals an unhealed part of myself. So now if we take the word trigger away and we say, I am comforting this unhealed part of myself, well, why wouldn't you want to work on healing the unhealed part of yourself? Right? It makes sense, but you got to get all the storyline out of the way. You have to actually change the dialogue, because when you say things, when you say them, you are going to believe them. Why wouldn't you? You're saying them, right? So if you're saying something that's totally meant to keep you stuck, but you're not aware of it because your level of conscious awareness has not yet tapped into this new belief system. And so if you're still operating from an old and limiting belief system, one where food was comfort, maybe when you were small, food was comfort. Maybe it was all you had. Maybe you were in survival mode. Maybe there was trauma. But the thing is that now, if again, those things are happening like right now, but you're not operating from right now, you're fueling the trigger, which is the unhealed part of yourself. Well, then you're just keeping that part alive. And so then now, what we have to do as a third thing is we have to say to ourselves, what would happen? Like, I have it written down actually. What if my story changed? Like who would I be without my story? What part of my story that may have unhealed parts in there, what part of my story would I like to try and change? Because if the story changes, now it's your story, you can keep it all you want, it's fine. It's just that, where do you want to put your energies towards? Do you want to put your energies towards fueling the wound so that the wound gets to stay alive and grow and, you know, become this big thing that eats you up from the inside out? Or would you like to apply your attention towards healing the wound? And that will allow you to change your story. And so you might have been struggling with this for decades, and it's your story and you can believe it, and that's okay. I believed my story for decades as well, until I realized that I had a choice. And this was the first thing that I learned in self-discovery. That's what I teach. I teach self-discovery. So what self-discovery means is that you will no longer have an opportunity to blame or guilt or shame or you know, fall victim to the things that are going on outside of you. You get an opportunity to question yourself for everything, really, to take every single word that comes into your mind and comes out of your mouth and maybe goes into your mouth, and you get to examine it on a wider lens, you know, not with a magnifying glass, not where we're like digging through the yesteryears of your life, but really just on an open scale, like curiosity. So one of the very first things that I learned in self-discovery was that my way of thinking was not the only way to think. Now I could stay stuck in my muck. I could. It was an option. It's just that no longer was it an option that I had to do. I learned that I was choosing that option so that I could keep my triggers alive. Once I recognized what I was doing, my part in it, then I was able to think to myself, well, wait a minute, if this is something that I'm choosing, well, what else could I choose? And once I was able to expand my mindset on that, like to be able to really see it through a wider lens and to be able to see that I didn't want to choose to have thoughts in my head that were meant to keep me stuck. I didn't want to fuel all my triggers so that I could keep my unhealed parts of me alive forever. I wanted to be able to change my story. So that way I could see it in a different mindset. Because again, if I stayed stuck in my limiting operating system, well, that's fine. But then I would just be a victim of my own circumstance, and I would be a victim of myself, not of what happened to me. So this is where I will leave you. And I would like to offer you an opportunity to join me and my coaching community to see if crushing your food thing through self-discovery is something that is for you. So somewhere in this video, you will see a link. You can fill out a form to see if you qualify for a free call, and then we'll take it from there. All right. Take care. Bye now.